She left her husband because she thought he was poor, and went back to the arms of her successful ex. But what she didn't know was that both men carried secrets. One that could lift her to the heights she always dreamed of, and another that would drag her deeper than she ever imagined. In the end, when the truth unfolded, her world would never be the same. This is the story of how she fell for her ex, but her husband's secret changed everything. Subscribe, like, comment and watch till the ending to share this interesting story to your family and friends. The rain drummed heavily on the rusty zinc roof of a small bungalow in Enugu. Inside, a little girl sat quietly in a corner, hugging her worn-out teddy bear. Her name was Amaka, no more than 8 years old, but her ears were already filled with words that children should never hear. Her parents were fighting again. "Chica, love does not feed a family," her father's voice thundered, echoing through the thin walls. He was a man broken by years of failed businesses. His once broad shoulders now stooped under the weight of disappointment. "Do you think these children can eat love? Can they go to school with love?" Her mother fired back, her voice sharp with bitterness. "And what has your chasing after business given us? Empty promises? That's shame. If I had married well, maybe we wouldn't be living like beggars today." The words sliced through the room like knives. Little Amaka pulled her teddy closer, blinking back tears. She didn't fully understand everything, but one thing kept ringing in her heart: poverty was a curse and love without money was useless. Her mother stormed into the room where Amaka sat, her face tight with frustration. Kneeling before her daughter, she grabbed her tiny hands. "My child, listen to me," she said, her tone softening. "Don't ever marry a poor man. Do you hear me? Poverty will destroy your happiness. Remember what I told you." Amaka nodded slowly, the words sinking deep into her young mind. It wasn't advice, it was a commandment. That night, after the fight died down, Amaka lay on her mat, wide awake. She stared at the dark ceiling, her mother's words echoing over and over. In her innocent heart, a vow was made: she would never end up like her mother. She would never choose love over money. Years passed and that vow grew with her. As a teenager, whenever a boy with ambition but no money approached her, she brushed him aside. "Dreams can't pay bills," she would tell her friends, echoing her father's failures and her mother's warnings. When she went to university, she became even more selective, chasing after men who looked financially stable. Her friends whispered about her attitude, but Amaka didn't care. She had seen the damage poverty caused. She had lived in it, tasted it, and she wanted nothing to do with it. What she didn't know was that this very vow, rooted in fear and bitterness, would one day blind her. It would drive her to walk away from true love. And when the consequences came, it would be too late to turn back. The morning sun streamed weakly through the small curtains of a modest apartment in Lagos. The smell of fried eggs and freshly brewed tea filled the air. Chaik, a tall, soft-spoken man in his early 30s, moved calmly around the kitchen. His movements were precise, measuring the tea, slicing bread, carefully setting the table. Amaka emerged from the bedroom, dressed sharply for work. Even in a simple blouse and skirt, she carried herself with elegance. Her eyes scanned the humble dining area and then landed on Chaik, who was still wearing his old, faded polo shirt. She sighed. "This is what I'm talking about, Chaik," she said, her tone already heavy with irritation. "Look at this place. Look at us. Still eating bread and eggs in this tiny apartment when other couples are building houses and driving new cars." Chaik looked up, his face calm, his eyes deep but unreadable. He pulled out a chair for her. "Sit down, Amaka. Eat something before work. You'll need your strength." But Amaka didn't sit. Instead, she crossed her arms and leaned against the wall. Strength for what? To keep living this poor man's life? To keep pretending that suffering is normal? Chaik smiled faintly, but there was a sharpness in his gaze. "Amaka, not everything you see is what it seems. Life is not always about flashy things. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden." She rolled her eyes. "There you go again with your riddles. Chaik, I'm tired. Tired of waiting, tired of living like we're in secondary school. My ex, Uche, he already owns a car. He takes trips, dresses well. Meanwhile you," she trailed off, waving her hand dismissively. The mention of Uche's name pierced the air. Chaik's jaw tightened, but he didn't raise his voice. He simply poured tea into a cup and placed it gently on the table. "If comfort is all you seek, then perhaps you don't really understand what marriage means," he said quietly. Amaka snapped. "Marriage means building a future together. But you, what future are we building here? I don't even know what you do half the time. You go out, you come back late, and yet we're still struggling. What are you even hiding, Chaik?" For a moment, the silence in the room was deafening. Chaik's eyes met hers, steady and unshaken. Amaka, everything will make sense in time. But remember this, love tested by money is the truest kind of love. She scoffed, grabbed her handbag and stormed out of the apartment. The tea on the table remained untouched, steam slowly fading into the air. As the door slammed shut, Chaik sat quietly staring at the cup of tea. His face remained calm but his thoughts were heavy. He whispered to himself, "Patience, Chaik. Patience. The truth always reveals itself." The restaurant's soft lights glowed against polished marble floors, and the faint sound of jazz music drifted through the air. Amaka sat by the window, tapping her manicured nails impatiently against her glass of juice. She had chosen her best gown for this meeting. Sleek, red, and elegant. Tonight, she wasn't going to look like the wife of a struggling man. She was going to remind herself of the life she deserved. Moments later, a silver Toyota Camry screeched to a stop outside. Out stepped Uche, her ex tall, broad-shouldered, with a neatly trimmed beard and cologne that filled the air before he even reached her table. His keys jingled as he swung them in his hand, the car remote flashing. He walked with the confidence of someone who wanted the world to know he had made it. "Amaka," he said, flashing a wide grin. He leaned down, kissed her cheek and slid into the seat across from her. "You still look as beautiful as the first day I met you." Amaka smiled coyly, pretending not to be too impressed, though her eyes betrayed her admiration. "Uche, you haven't changed. Always the charmer." The waiter arrived and without looking at the menu, Uche ordered the most expensive dishes. "Anything my queen wants," he added with a wink at Amaka. She laughed lightly but inside, her heart was already comparing. Chaik never ordered so extravagantly. Chaik was always careful with money. "So," Uche leaned forward, lowering his voice, "how's life? I heard you got married." "To that, what's his name again?" "Chaik." The way he said it, dismissing Chaik as if he were a nobody, made Amaka's chest tighten with both shame and anger. She forced a smile. "Yes, Chaik. But honestly, Uche, life with him has been hard. He doesn't think big. He doesn't want more. I'm just tired of living like we're in poverty." Uche's eyes gleamed. He leaned back in his chair, adjusting his wristwatch so the gold plating caught the light. "Amaka, you deserve better. A woman like you should be riding in big cars, traveling abroad, living the life. Look at me, do I look like a man who will let you suffer?" Amaka's heart skipped. His words felt like water on her dry, thirsty soul. She remembered her mother's voice, "Never marry a poor man." Sitting here with Uche, she felt she was finally stepping into the life she was meant for. As they laughed and reminisced about old times, the waiter returned with their meals. While placing the tray, he casually said to Uche, "Sir, your Oga has been asking for you since morning. Hope you'll return to the office after this?" For a split second, Uche's face stiffened. He forced a laugh and waved it off. "Don't mind these people. Always disturbing me. Business, business, business." But Amaka noticed the flicker of unease in his eyes. She ignored it quickly, too dazzled by the surface. She told herself, Uche is a man who knows how to handle business. That's why he's successful. The apartment was unusually quiet that evening. The soft hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound, slicing through the heavy tension that hung in the room. Chaik sat at the dining table, poring over a stack of documents. His brow furrowed slightly as he made notes with his pen. To anyone watching, they were just papers, bland, technical, boring. To Chaik, they were the heartbeat of his empire. But Amaka didn't see that. She stood at the doorway, arms folded, watching him. Her face was a storm cloud of frustration. The sight of those papers she thought meant nothing, ignited her anger. "So this is what you spend your nights doing?" she snapped, breaking the silence. Chaik looked up slowly, adjusting his glasses. "Amaka, you're home early. Come, sit down. I'll warm your food." "Don't patronize me, Chaik," she shouted, slamming her handbag onto the couch. "I'm sick and tired of this useless life. Other women are driving cars, living in duplexes, going on vacations. Look at me, married to a man who can't even buy me a decent necklace." Chaik's jaw tightened. He closed the file in front of him, set his pen aside and looked directly at her. His eyes weren't angry, they were calm, steady, like a man who had already seen this storm coming. "Amaka," he said softly, "do you truly believe material things define happiness? Do you think peace of mind comes from houses and cars?" "Yes," she fired back without hesitation. "Because I lived without them. I know what poverty feels like. I won't die in it again. I warned you, Chaik. I will not suffer because of your foolish pride." Chaik's lips curved into a faint, almost sorrowful smile. One day you'll understand that not everything glittering is gold. Sometimes silence hides the greatest treasures. She rolled her eyes and let out a bitter laugh. Enough of your riddles, Chike. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce. The words dropped like a bomb between them. For the first time, Chike's hand trembled slightly, though his face remained calm. He studied her, this woman he had given his heart to, the one he had hoped would stand by him through thick and thin. Is this truly what you want? He asked quietly. It's what I deserve, she replied coldly. The silence that followed was suffocating. Chike closed his eyes briefly as if sealing away a part of himself. When he opened them again, they were filled not with anger but with a distant sadness. Then I won't stop you, he said. 2 weeks later, papers were signed. Neighbors whispered, relatives argued, some blaming Amaka for being shallow, others saying Chike wasn't ambitious enough. The community was divided, but Amaka stood tall, convinced she had made the right choice. She packed her bags, ready to step into what she thought was a brighter future. What she didn't know was that her decision had set in motion the cruelest twist of fate. The first weeks with Uche felt like paradise to Amaka. He moved her into a well-furnished apartment on the mainland, complete with leather sofas, a flat-screen TV and glass dining tables. Compared to the simplicity of Chike's home, it felt like stepping into another world. Every evening, Uche came home in his silver Toyota Camry, music blasting, sunglasses on, and confidence radiating like a man in total control of life. Sometimes he tossed his car keys on the table dramatically, saying, "Baby, your man is working hard for you." Amaka soaked it all in. Her friends who once mocked her for suffering with Chike, now envied her. "Girl, you did the right thing," one said, sipping wine during a girls' hangout. "Look at you now, see how Uche is taking care of you. Chike could never." Amaka smiled proudly, but deep down she avoided thinking about Chike. Whenever his face flashed in her mind, the calm eyes, the way he never raised his voice, she quickly pushed the thought away. He couldn't give me this life, she reminded herself. I made the right choice. But cracks soon began to appear. One Saturday morning, Amaka noticed a stack of unopened bills on Uche's table. Electricity, water, even internet, several months unpaid. She picked them up, frowning. "Uche, why haven't you paid these?" Uche, brushing cologne on his neck, snatched the papers from her hand. "Don't worry about that, babe. My boys will handle it. You just enjoy yourself." His answer seemed too quick, too dismissive, but Amaka didn't push. She had promised herself never to question a man who looked successful. Another time, while riding with him, Uche's phone rang. His voice dropped instantly when he saw the caller ID, "Office." He answered nervously, "Yes sir, I'll be back soon." "Sorry sir." His tone was completely different, humble, almost fearful. When the call ended, Amaka laughed lightly. "Uche, since when did you start apologizing like a schoolboy? I thought you run things in that company." Uche chuckled nervously, shifting in his seat. "Amaka, you don't understand corporate life. Even bosses answer to bigger bosses. Don't worry about that. Just know your man is hustling." Again she ignored the unease that crept into her chest. She wanted so badly to believe she had chosen well. Weeks later, Uche invited her to a company dinner. "This is big," he told her, eyes gleaming. "You'll finally meet the big men I roll with. When they see you on my arm, they'll know I've arrived." Amaka's heart soared. This was what she wanted, to stand beside a man who commanded respect, to prove to everyone that leaving Chike was the best decision of her life. That evening, she laid out her best gown, practiced her smile in the mirror, and whispered to herself, "This is the beginning of my real life." But what she didn't know was that the dinner would shatter her illusions forever. The banquet hall shimmered with golden chandeliers, polished marble floors, and a red carpet stretching across the entrance. The air smelled of wealth, expensive colognes, perfumes, and the faint aroma of fine wine. Amaka clung to Uche's arm as they stepped inside, her heels clicking softly. Her gown was emerald green, hugging her figure elegantly, and her heart swelled with pride. Tonight was the night. Tonight she would be introduced to the circle of power. She imagined the whispers already, "That must be Uche's woman. He really has made it." "Relax, baby," Uche whispered with a cocky smile, patting her hand. "You're the queen of the night. Everyone will see you and know that I'm not playing small." They took a seat near the front, where the glow of the chandeliers was brightest. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved swiftly between tables, pouring champagne and serving delicacies. Amaka sat straighter, adjusting her necklace, soaking in the atmosphere. As the program began, the master of ceremonies took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our annual corporate dinner. Tonight, we honor the vision, resilience, and leadership of the man who has built this company into a force to be reckoned with. Please rise as we welcome our CEO. The room buzzed with anticipation. Uche quickly stood, pulling Amaka up beside him. She turned expectantly toward the entrance, her heart beating fast. This was it, the moment she would finally see the powerful man behind Uche's success. The double doors opened. Applause erupted. And then, Amaka froze. Walking through the doors, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, confident and commanding, was Chaik, her poor husband. The hall fell into reverent silence as staff bowed slightly, executives clapped, and even Uche straightened like a nervous schoolboy. Chaik's presence filled the room, calm, regal, untouchable. He acknowledged the applause with a polite nod, his eyes scanning the room before settling briefly, ever so briefly, on Amaka. Her legs weakened. Her mouth went dry. She whispered, trembling, "No, it can't be." But it was. The man she had mocked, belittled, and abandoned was the very man everyone here respected. Her husband, the struggling man, was the owner of it all. Uche leaned toward her, his voice low and shaky. "Stand straight. That's my boss." Amaka's world collapsed in that instant. She glanced at Uche, her proud, flashy provider, now sweating, his head bowed like a servant before Chaik. The illusion shattered. The man she had chosen was nothing but an employee, while the man she left behind was the true king. Chaik walked to the stage, his voice calm and commanding as he addressed the audience about vision, loyalty, and resilience. Every word stabbed Amaka's heart, because she knew he wasn't just speaking to the crowd, he was speaking to her. The ride home from the event was suffocating. The silence in Uche's car pressed against Amaka's chest like a heavy stone. She stared out of the tinted window, watching the blur of streetlights streak past, her reflection staring back at her with hollow eyes. Her mind replayed the night in fragments. The thunderous applause for Chaik, the admiration in everyone's eyes, the way Uche had almost bowed when Chaik passed. And then that fleeting glance, the way Chaik's eyes had brushed over her, cold, unreadable, as though she were nothing more than a stranger. The sting was unbearable. Uche finally broke the silence, his voice low and edged with frustration. "Why didn't you tell me your husband was Chaik?" "The Chaik." Amaka's throat tightened. I didn't know," she whispered. He never told me." Uche scoffed bitterly. "So, you left a king for me? And I'm here hustling under his payroll?" He shook his head, gripping the wheel tighter. "You've ruined me. Do you even know what Chaik will think now? He'll see me parading his ex-wife around like a trophy. I could lose my job. My reputation." Amaka turned to him, panic rising. "Don't say that. He won't destroy you. He's not that kind of man." But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. The Chaik she once knew, the quiet, humble man, was gone. The man at that event had been different. Untouchable. A lion among sheep. And she had mocked him, spat on his worth, and walked away. The car stopped in front of Uche's modest apartment. For the first time, Amaka truly saw it for what it was, small, cramped, and unimpressive. The flashy lifestyle she had clung to was nothing but smoke and mirrors. Compared to Chaik's quiet empire, Uche's world looked pitiful. As she sat on the edge of Uche's bed that night, sleepless, memories assaulted her. Chaik fixing the broken window of their rented flat himself, sweating but smiling. Chaik counting coins carefully to pay for groceries. Chaik telling her once, almost as a warning, "Amaka, never judge a man by today. Life has a way of turning tables tomorrow." She had laughed at him then. Now the words burned in her ears. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "What have I done?" she whispered into the darkness. Her phone buzzed, a message from an old friend who had also been at the event. "Amaka, you mean your husband is the Chaik? Babe, you're blessed and you don't even know it. People pray for this kind of man. And you walked away?" She dropped the phone as though it had stung her. The shame was suffocating. Amaka curled into herself, her sobs muffled against the pillow. For the first time she realized the true poverty wasn't in Chaik's pockets. It was in her vision. She had been blind, greedy, and shallow. And now she was paying the price. 3 days passed, each one heavier than the last. Amaka barely ate, barely spoke. Uche avoided her too, resentful and paranoid about his job. Every time his phone rang he jumped, convinced it was Chaik calling to end his career. The apartment felt like a prison, suffocating her with guilt and regret. On the 4th morning, Amaka made a decision. She couldn't live like this. She had to see Chaik, face him, explain, beg if she had to. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for forgiveness. She dressed carefully in a simple gown, no flashy jewelry, no heavy makeup, just herself, stripped bare. She took a cab to the towering glass headquarters of Chaik's company. As the building loomed into view, her palms began to sweat. The sight of the massive logo, his logo, etched across the entrance nearly broke her resolve. Inside, the atmosphere screamed power. Polished floors, employees moving with purpose, whispers of respect whenever Chaik's name was mentioned. She approached the receptionist timidly. I need to see Mr. Chaik, she said, her voice trembling. The receptionist gave her a polite but firm smile. Do you have an appointment? Amaka swallowed. Tell him, it's his wife. The receptionist raised a brow, but within minutes 2 suited aides escorted her to the top floor. Her heart pounded with every step. When the doors to Chaik's office opened, she froze. There he was, behind a vast mahogany desk, signing documents, every movement precise, confident. He looked up slowly. Their eyes met. Amaka's knees nearly gave way. Amaka, he said evenly, his voice calm but distant. To what do I owe this visit? She stepped forward, her voice breaking. Chaik, please, I didn't know. I thought. He raised a hand, silencing her. You thought I was poor. You thought you could mock me, leave me, and upgrade yourself with someone else. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze sharp, unreadable. Now you've discovered the truth and suddenly you're here. Tears welled in her eyes. I was blind. I didn't see your worth. I was foolish, shallow. Please forgive me. I still love you. Chaik's face remained unreadable, but his words cut like ice. Love. He gave a short, humorless laugh. No, Amaka. You loved what you thought was money. You left when you didn't see it. Now that you've seen the truth, you crawl back. That's not love, it's convenience. She fell to her knees. Please, Chaik, give me another chance. I'll be better, I swear. He stood slowly, walking around the desk until he was towering over her. For a brief moment, his eyes softened, just a flicker of the man she once knew. Then his jaw tightened. You made your choice, he said firmly. And choices have consequences. My respect is not for sale. My loyalty is not recycled. Amaka sobbed uncontrollably as the aides reappeared. Chaik's final words echoed as they led her out. The door you slammed in pride is one you cannot reopen in regret. The next morning, Amaka awoke to the sound of Uche's angry voice on the phone. I swear, sir, I didn't mean any disrespect. No, I didn't know she was your wife, your ex-wife. Please give me another chance. His words were desperate, his voice shaking. Then silence. Slowly, Uche lowered the phone, his face pale. They've suspended me, he muttered, slumping onto the chair. Pending investigation. That's Chaik's way of saying I'm finished. Amaka's chest tightened. What do you mean suspended? Uche turned to her, eyes blazing with fury. Do you understand what you've done? You paraded me around in front of your billionaire husband, and now he thinks I'm a clown stealing his leftovers. I'll be blacklisted. No company will hire me once his shadow falls over my name. Amaka reached out, but Uche shoved her hand away. You've cursed me, Amaka. You've ruined everything. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. She sat there alone, trembling. For the first time, the apartment felt emptier than ever. By afternoon, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't friends or relatives, it was social media. Photos from the corporate dinner were circulating. There she was, sitting proudly beside Uche as Chaik, regal and untouchable, walked into the room. The caption stung like daggers. This woman left her husband when he was poor. Turns out, the man she ran to works for her husband. Lesson: never despise small beginnings. Greed makes people blind. The comments multiplied. Laughter. Scorn. Mockery. People she hadn't spoken to in years tagged her name with insults. Amaka tried to switch off her phone, but the voices haunted her. Each notification was a reminder of her shame. She was no longer just a woman who made a mistake. She was a lesson, a proverb, a warning to others. By evening, Uche returned, drunk and bitter. They've stripped me of my position, he spat, stumbling inside. And you, what good are you now? You couldn't even secure me favor with your husband. His words dripped with venom. You're nothing but bad luck. Amaka stared at him, stunned. The man she had once chosen over loyalty now looked pathetic, reeking of alcohol, slurring insults, blaming her for his downfall. And in that moment, clarity hit her like a wave. She had gambled everything, her dignity, her marriage, her future, for this. For Uche. 4 empty promises and shallow glitter. And she had lost it all. Alone in the bathroom later that night, Amaka stood before the mirror. Her reflection seemed like that of a stranger, eyes swollen from crying, shoulders slumped with shame, her once proud aura gone. She whispered to herself, broken. Everyone warned me. But I thought I was wise. Weeks passed. Amaka's world grew quieter, but the silence was not peace, it was emptiness. Uche had drifted further away, spending his nights in bars and returning only to unleash his frustrations on her. Their relationship, once built on false promises, was now a pit of bitterness and blame. One afternoon, Amaka sat at a roadside stall, staring blankly at a plate of untouched food. Life had stripped her of every pretense. No fancy makeup. No elegant dresses. Just a worn wrapper tied around her waist, her hair loosely held back. A few people passing by whispered, pointing at her. She had become that woman, the cautionary tale. Across the street, a sleek convoy of black SUVs rolled by. Her heart skipped. She recognized that insignia instantly, it was Chike's. Through the tinted glass, she caught a fleeting glimpse of him seated in the back, calm, dignified, his presence unshaken by her chaos. Beside him sat another woman, elegant, graceful, with a quiet confidence Amaka could never fake. The woman laughed at something he said, resting her hand lightly on his. They looked happy. Amaka's chest ached. Her hands trembled as tears filled her eyes. In that brief moment she saw the life she had thrown away, the man who had once loved her beyond measure, the loyalty she had crushed, the empire she had never believed in. The convoy disappeared into the distance, leaving her sitting in her silence, a broken reflection of what could have been. Later that evening she returned to the small apartment. Uche wasn't there, he rarely was anymore. She sat by the window watching children play in the dusty street below. Their laughter carried a purity she envied. She whispered to herself, almost like a confession. I wanted the world but I lost my soul. I wanted riches but I despised the true treasure. And now, I have nothing. Her words hung in the air, heavy and raw. The narrator's voice rose, calm but firm. Amaka's story is not just her own, it is a mirror. Too often we measure worth by what we see today, forgetting that tomorrow has its own secrets. She despised a man because he seemed poor, forgetting that wealth can be hidden, and greatness often grows in silence. She chose glitter over gold, and in the end she held only dust. The camera lingers on Amaka, sitting alone, eyes hollow but reflective. Then it shifts briefly to Chike, walking confidently into a boardroom, his new partner by his side. Both of them symbols of loyalty, patience, and vision. Subscribe, like, comment, and share for more stories.